You've got to be kidding me, middle school dropout? How humiliating. My younger brother, whom I raised like a parent, was set to marry the daughter of a wealthy CEO. At the formal introduction, my future in-laws asked about my education. When I answered honestly, they recoiled in shock. The father-in-law glared at me. Let me make something clear. In our family, attending a prestigious university is the norm. We have doctors and business executives among us. That's our lineage. And now, my daughter's brother-in-law is a middle school dropout? This is a disaster. For my brother's sake, I endured the humiliation. But on the day of his wedding, I found my place card defaced with the words "Uneducated Pauper" scribbled in marker. As I was about to leave, a stunning blonde approached me. "Mr. Ingram, should we crush that company?" "Depends on them. My name is Jason Ingram. I'm 36 years old. My life may be stable now, but the road to get here was anything but easy. Let me start from the beginning. My family consisted of my father, mother, and my younger brother, Sebastian, who was 7 years younger than me. From as far back as I can remember, my parents' marriage was a disaster. My father's furious yelling echoed through our home daily, and I lost count of how many nights I trembled in fear as I tried to sleep. When I had just started elementary school, my brother Sebastian was born. I still remember my mother telling me, "Take care of him as his big brother, okay?" I took those words to heart and looked after Sebastian the best I could. I fed him, took him to the park. He would toddle after me, calling Jason, Jason, and even as a child myself, I adored him. But when I was in 5th grade and Sebastian was 3, my parents finally divorced. Our father left, and our new life as a family of 3, my mother, Sebastian, and me, began. My mother was never in great health. But to support us, she started working multiple jobs, day and night. When she wasn't home, it was my job to take care of Sebastian. Despite everything, she was kind and poured all her love into us. I wanted to support her, so I never complained and helped out around the house even after I became a teenager. For a while, the 3 of us managed to get by. By the time I was in my final year of middle school, I had already decided I wouldn't go to high school, I'd start working instead. But when I told my mother, she was completely against it. I only wanted to help her, but she cried and begged me to go to high school. Feeling guilty, I agreed. From then on, I studied relentlessly. Eventually, I earned a full scholarship to the top high school in the region, K-High. Jason, that's amazing. K-High is for the smartest kids, right? You're my hero. The day I got accepted, both Sebastian and my mother were overjoyed. Mom, thank you for letting me go to high school. I promise I'll work hard, get a good job, and make life easier for you. She told me not to worry about her, but I had already made up my mind. High school was a great experience. I consistently ranked at the top of my class, made friends, and was fortunate to have supportive teachers. I became especially close to a friend named Daniel. We were practically best friends. I wish those happy days could last forever, but one day, everything came crashing down. My mother collapsed at work. By the time I arrived at the hospital, it was too late. Years of overwork had taken their toll, and she passed away suddenly from an illness. A nurse told me, until the very end, she kept calling your names, Jason, Sebastian. I broke down in tears. Sebastian clung to her lifeless body, wailing in agony. With no other relatives, we held a small, simple funeral. Afterward, a government official came and asked what we planned to do. Since we had no family to take us in, we could go to a state facility if we wished. But I couldn't bring myself to leave the apartment filled with memories of our mother. I remembered what she once told me when Sebastian was born: take care of him. I steeled my resolve and answered firmly, I'll drop out of high school and work. I'll raise Sebastian myself. Sebastian, who was in 5th grade at the time, was visibly shaken. Jason, you can't. You love school, don't you? You're the top student. You shouldn't do this. Sebastian, don't worry. From now on, I'll make sure you're happy. And just like that, I made the decision to quit high school. My teachers and friends were shocked and tried to stop me. But I was determined. I ignored their pleas and submitted my notice of withdrawal. Daniel, my best friend, insisted on helping me find a job. His family owned a construction company, and he promised to ask his father to hire me. With no other job prospects, I bowed my head and asked him to make it happen. And so, I joined S Construction, a company specializing in residential and commercial buildings, with only a middle school education. Daniel's father, Mr. Keller, knew my circumstances and sympathized with me. "If you ever need help, don't hesitate to ask," he told me. I started at the bottom, assisting carpenters, carrying materials, and doing whatever tasks needed to be done. Every day, I worked up a sweat, earning a living while also taking care of Sebastian. Luckily, Sebastian was a bright and independent kid. He never gave me any trouble. Maybe he was doing his best not to burden me. He even helped with cooking, and every night, we ate dinner together. One of my greatest joys was listening to him talk about his day at school. But when he entered middle school, I noticed something. "Sebastian, you never talk about club activities. Aren't they mandatory in middle school? You used to love soccer in elementary school, aren't you joining the soccer team?" Sebastian looked down uncomfortably. "Well, joining a club costs money for gear and stuff. And if I stay late for practice, I won't be able to help around the house." So I told my teacher I'd skip club activities. I was stunned and made him sit down. "Sebastian, don't hold yourself back like that. You should play soccer." "But, Jason, don't worry about the money. I'll handle the housework. I don't want you to miss out on being a kid. You should do what you want to do." Tears welled up in Sebastian's eyes. "That's not fair. Why do I get to do what I want when you had to give up everything for me? What are you talking about? I enjoy my job. I'm doing just fine." "So go for it, Sebastian, play soccer." After a long pause, he finally nodded. I regretted making him feel like he had to worry about me. From then on, I dedicated myself even more to both my work and my responsibilities at home. Sebastian thrived in the soccer club, and watching his matches on weekends became one of my greatest joys. Not only that, but he excelled in academics as well. He was the perfect student. I was incredibly proud of him. However, when he reached his final year of middle school, we had a heated argument. "Sebastian, what the hell is this on your career form? Employment? Mr. Thompson, your homeroom teacher, said during the parent-teacher conference that you'd have no trouble getting into K-High. Jason, I'm going to start working after middle school. I can't keep burdening you any longer." Looking at his determined face, I saw my younger self reflected in him. Was this how Mom felt when I told her I wasn't going to high school? A painful tightness gripped my chest. "Sebastian, look at this." I took out 2 bank books. "This one holds the money Mom left for us. And this one is what I've saved over the past 5 years since I started working. It's more than enough for your high school tuition." Sebastian's eyes widened as he looked at the savings. "I was able to save this much thanks to you living frugally with me. I've made sure you have everything you need to go to K-High. So don't worry about a thing and just go." His voice trembled as he spoke. "The closer I get to the age you were back then, the more I realize how hard you must have worked to get into K-High, and how painful it must have been to give it all up. You've done everything for me, and I've never given anything back. So at the very least, I wanted to be independent and start working." I placed my hands firmly on his shoulders. "Sebastian, you've already given me so much. Just seeing you grow up and enjoy your youth gives me strength. You choosing to live your life to the fullest is what saves me. Please, understand that. Let me have the peace of knowing you're taken care of." Tears started streaming down his face. Is it really okay if I go to high school? Of course it is. You're going to enjoy it for both of us. Jason, I promise. I'll study hard and become someone you can be proud of. I'll do my best, so I won't let you down. And just like that, Sebastian agreed to go to high school. Not only did he get into K-High, but he also earned a full scholarship, just like I had. Sebastian said I would get a part-time job, but I made him keep playing soccer. Watching him balance his studies, sports, and friendships like a regular high school student was the best motivation I could ever ask for. Meanwhile, at work, I earned various qualifications and gradually took on more responsibilities. But no matter how much my role changed, I never forgot my roots. I remained diligent and dedicated to my craft. I kept in touch with Daniel, and after we became adults, we'd occasionally grab drinks together. Little by little, I, too, was growing into my own. By the time Sebastian reached his final year of high school, I had one last question for him. Sebastian, you already know what you should do next, don't you? When I said that, Sebastian gave a deep nod. Jason, I want to go to university. Would that be okay? After all his resistance before, hearing him say that out of his own will made me happier than I could express. Of course. Go learn everything only university can teach you. Thank you so much. I'll apply for scholarships and work part-time, so I won't be a burden to you. Don't worry about that. Just focus on studying. I'll always have your back, so rely on me whenever you need to. He nodded, his face breaking into the most genuine smile. Sebastian went on to earn a scholarship at a prestigious national university. He even received a grant-based scholarship, meaning he didn't have to worry about tuition. I was so proud of him that I couldn't help but brag to Daniel about it. I attended his university entrance ceremony and even stood as his guardian at his coming-of-age ceremony. Although he worked part-time to support himself, once he started job hunting, that became difficult. That was when I stepped in. Sebastian thanked me over and over again, but honestly, I was just happy to help. And in the end, he secured a job at a top-tier company. When he received the offer, he came straight to me and bowed deeply. Jason, I made it this far because of you. Ever since the day we lost Mom, you've protected me and raised me. You're my only family, and I couldn't ask for a better brother. I'll never forget everything you've done for me. Thank you, truly. At that moment, I felt like all the years of hardship had finally paid off. Sebastian, you're my greatest pride. You've become an incredible man, someone I can show off to anyone. Now, focus on your career and do your best out there. Sebastian nodded, repeating thank you over and over again. He graduated from university and finally became independent. At that point, we decided to move out of the apartment we had lived in for so long and each start living on our own. Even so, we continued to meet regularly and have meals together. When Sebastian received his first paycheck at T Corp, he took me to a fancy restaurant. I know this isn't enough to repay everything you've done for me, but treating you to a nice meal like this has always been my dream. His words touched me deeply, and I truly enjoyed that luxurious meal. Meanwhile, at work, I earned a promotion and continued to dedicate myself to my job. Daniel's father, my employer, recognized my efforts, and I was grateful for that. I was determined to give my all to this company as a way of repaying the kindness I had received. Then, one day, I met someone. A foreign woman joined our company. Nice to meet you, I'm Jessica. I look forward to working with you all. She introduced herself in flawless Japanese, and I found myself captivated. Her golden blonde hair, her fair skin. She had strikingly beautiful features. She was assigned to my department. According to Jessica, she had moved to Japan with her parents during high school, and back then, our construction company had built their house. She had been so impressed with the craftsmanship that she studied business management in university and applied to work at our company. Jason, just call me Jessica. Oh, sure. I had spent my life surrounded by men in the workplace and had little experience interacting with women. But Jessica was naturally outgoing and quickly grew comfortable around me. As we worked together, I was constantly amazed by her capabilities. I came to deeply respect her. After about 2 years of working together, she invited me out for a meal. Since it was our first time dining together alone, I was nervous. But then she hit me with something unexpected. I'll be direct. Jason, how do you feel about me? Gone was her usual confident demeanor, her face was slightly flushed. What do you mean? You're incredibly skilled at your job, and I really respect you. Not like that. I mean, do you see me as a woman? The thought of seeing Jessica as a romantic interest had never even crossed my mind. She was beautiful, highly educated, and talented at her job. Someone like her was completely out of my league. I had probably convinced myself of that from the start. When I told her this honestly, she let out a sigh. Let me be clear, I like you, Jason. True to her direct nature, she said it outright, leaving me completely shaken. From now on, I want you to see me that way. If it doesn't work out, I'll let it go. I barely managed to nod, and that night, we parted ways. But after giving it some thought, I realized just how much Jessica had come to mean to me. A few days later, I finally told her, Jessica, I like you too. If you don't mind being with someone like me, would you go out with me seriously? At that moment, her face lit up with a radiant smile, like a sunflower blooming in the sun. She nodded happily. And so, Jessica and I began dating. I was inexperienced in relationships and had no idea how to take the lead, so I swallowed my pride and consulted Daniel and Sebastian for advice. Sebastian was thrilled that I had found someone special and even helped me plan date spots. Before I knew it, I was 35, and Sebastian was 29. One day, I got a call from Sebastian. Sebastian? What's up? You inviting me out for dinner? Then, Sebastian answered in a slightly embarrassed voice. I have someone I want you to meet, Jason. Wait, does that mean? Yeah, I'm thinking about getting married. I couldn't help but let out a joyful shout. I had heard that Sebastian was dating a colleague, but it seemed things had finally progressed to marriage. Of course, I'd love to meet her. Great. Also, if possible, could you bring Jessica along? You're serious about her, too, right? That was true, Sebastian and Jessica hadn't met yet. This seemed like a good opportunity, so I decided to bring Jessica along for the introduction. On the day of the meeting, Sebastian arrived with a petite, kind-looking woman. Nice to meet you. I'm Monica Sanders. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I introduced myself to Monica, Sebastian's fiancée, and also introduced Jessica. Then, the four of us sat down for a meal. During dinner, Monica spoke up. Sebastian told me about how much you struggled to raise him after your mother passed away. Oh, it's really not that big of a deal. No, not everyone could do what you did. I respect you for it. And I can tell that more than anything, you want Sebastian to be happy. That's why. I want to do my best to make him happy, too. So, will you give us your blessing for our marriage? I was moved by Monica's sincere words. Of course. Monica, please be happy with Sebastian. Thank you, Jason. Sebastian and Monica both bowed deeply to me. On the way home, Jessica spoke up. Sebastian is just like you, he's a wonderful person. And Monica is a great match for him. Yeah, I'm really happy for them. I hope they have a beautiful life together. I nodded with a smile at Jessica's words. A few weeks later, I was set to meet Monica's family. The meeting was held at a restaurant attached to the venue where Sebastian and Monica would have their wedding. Dressed in a suit, I headed there. "Nice to meet you, I'm Scott Sanders, Monica's father. And this is my wife, Alicia." Monica's father was a stocky man with an air of authority. Her mother, on the other hand, wore lots of jewelry and had a rather flashy presence. Monica had told me beforehand that her father ran a company dealing with imported materials. In other words, Monica was the daughter of a company president. Sebastian introduced me, and I bowed politely. "I hear Sebastian graduated from a prestigious university and works at the same top-tier company as Monica T Corporation." "Not only that, but he's considered their brightest rising star. Truly an ideal match for our daughter." When Scott said that, Alicia smiled as well. "Yes, absolutely. We fully support this marriage." I also expressed my support for the marriage, and the conversation remained warm and pleasant. Seeing how welcoming Monica's parents were to Sebastian reassured me. Just then, Sebastian and Monica were called away by the staff to discuss wedding preparations. They said they'd be gone for about 10 minutes. That left just me and Monica's parents at the table. "So, may I ask, which university did you graduate from?" Scott suddenly leaned forward and asked. I answered honestly. "I didn't go to college." "What?" At that moment, I began to explain. "When I was in high school, my mother passed away. Since then, I had been working at a construction company to raise Sebastian." As I spoke, the expressions on Monica's parents' faces gradually changed. "What? So you're telling me your highest level of education is middle school?" "Yes, that's correct." "This is unbelievable." Scott placed a hand on his forehead and looked up at the ceiling. Is something wrong?" "Of course something is wrong. I can't believe Sebastian's brother is a middle school dropout." Scott spoke with a furious expression. "This is outrageous." I assumed, naturally, that Sebastian's brother had also graduated from a prestigious university. But to find out that you're just a middle school graduate? It's absolutely humiliating." "Wait, humiliating?" Scott glared at me. "That's right. Let me make something clear, we come from a family where attending a top university is the norm. Many of our relatives are doctors or business executives. That's our lineage. And now, Monica's future brother-in-law turns out to be a middle school dropout? This is a disgrace." As I sat there, stunned, Alicia frowned. "Honey, maybe we should reconsider this marriage from the beginning." "But the engagement has already been announced to the relatives, and there's nothing wrong with Sebastian himself." Scott furrowed his brow. Then, Alicia spoke firmly. "I know. Let's have Sebastian cut ties with him. You should distance yourself from him and stay away from Monica. If you do that, we'll allow the marriage." "What?" "Sebastian is my only family." Then, Scott spoke coldly. "If you truly consider yourself family, then you should think about their happiness. I simply cannot accept being related to someone with such a low level of education. Understand this if you don't step back. We will not approve this marriage." Their words were nothing short of an insult, and I felt a surge of anger rising inside me. But then, I remembered Sebastian and Monica's happy faces. I couldn't be the one to ruin their marriage. "Please, approve their marriage." Suppressing my frustration, I bowed my head. "Good. Know your place and use what little intelligence you have to think about what's best for your brother." Scott glared at me while Alicia shot me a contemptuous look. Just then, Sebastian and Monica returned. Immediately, Scott and Alicia's expressions shifted into bright smiles as they welcomed them back. Under the table, I clenched my fists tightly. I never told Sebastian about the way they treated me. If he found out, he would surely be furious. And if that happened, it could cause problems between him and Monica. "Jason, I really hope you and Jessica can come to the wedding. Sebastian said this with a big smile. How could I possibly tell him the truth? 3 months later, the day of Sebastian and Monica's wedding arrived. Jessica and I headed to the venue together. She was the only person I had told about what happened with the Sanders. Jason, are you really sure about attending? What if they say something awful again? Today is Sebastian's big day. Besides, it's their daughter's wedding. I doubt they'd cause a scene. Despite my anxiety, I tried to reassure her. The ceremony began. Sebastian walked into the chapel with confidence, looking sharp in his tuxedo. Seeing him like that brought tears to my eyes. After he reached the altar, it was Monica's turn to enter. With his chest puffed out, Scott escorted her down the aisle, and Monica walked gracefully beside him. The solemn ceremony began. I watched with deep emotion as they exchanged vows and rings. Jessica sat beside me, clapping along with the rest of the guests. And just like that, the beautiful ceremony came to an end. Next, we moved from the chapel to the reception hall. During the ceremony, both Scott and Alicia had deliberately avoided making eye contact with me. At one point, a relative, likely from Monica's side, asked Scott something while glancing in my direction. Scott answered with a bitter expression, and the relative looked at me in shock. I could already guess what they were talking about: my education. I forced myself to ignore their stares. Upon entering the reception hall, I was surprised to find that Jessica and I had been given a beautifully set table. But when I checked the place card on my seat, I froze. Scrawled across it in marker were the words, "Uneducated Pauper." What the hell? Jessica noticed my expression, peeked at the place card, and immediately covered her mouth in shock. There was only one group of people who could have done this. I glanced over at the table where Monica's parents were seated. They were pointing at me and laughing uproariously. Scott and Alicia clutched their stomachs as if they had just heard the funniest joke in the world. The relatives at their table, also laughing, stole glances in my direction. I took a deep breath and forced myself to sit down. At that moment, the announcement played. Sebastian and Monica were about to make their entrance. I couldn't afford to make a scene here. For Sebastian and Monica's sake, I had to endure it. The reception began, but I couldn't eat a bite. All I could do was stare at the words on my place card, "Uneducated Pauper." Jessica, too, sat beside me in silence, her expression unreadable. She hadn't touched her food either. Then came the candle service, where Sebastian and Monica made their way around the room, visiting each table. As they approached, Scott and Alicia smirked and walked over to our table first. Well, dear Jason. Are you enjoying the wedding? I remained silent, looking up at him. This is the kind of event where the groom's family should come over and pour drinks for the bride's parents, you know. But here you are, just sitting in silence. No sense of etiquette whatsoever. I suppose that's to be expected from someone with only a middle school education. How disgraceful. Alicia, dressed in an elaborate kimono, sneered at me. At that moment, I finally spoke. Did you do this? Scott grinned, revealing his yellowed teeth. Oh, that? Just a little gift. It made it easy for you to find your seat, didn't it? Alicia let out a coarse laugh. You think you can get away with something this insulting? Jessica, unable to hold back any longer, spoke up. Scott immediately turned his glare to her. Who do you think you are, foreign girl? You have no place in this conversation. What are you, some hostess from a nightclub or something? As expected from a middle school dropout, so vulgar. At that moment, I lost it. They had insulted Jessica. That, I could not forgive. Just as I was about to speak, Sebastian and Monica arrived at our table. Jason, Jessica, thank you so much for coming to our wedding. Huh? What's going on? Sebastian immediately sensed the tense atmosphere and looked at us in confusion. Jessica, her expression ice cold, pointed to my place card. Sebastian and Monica glanced at it and instantly went pale. What the hell is this? Who did this? It's a gift from your father-in-law and mother-in-law. When I responded calmly, Sebastian looked at Scott and Alicia with a face that said he couldn't believe it. Monica covered her mouth with both hands, frozen in shock. Jessica was the first to break the silence. Sebastian, Monica. You probably didn't know, but Jason has been subjected to their insults ever since the engagement meeting. They called him uneducated, told him to stay away from your family. And just now, they said horrible things again. They even insulted me, calling me a vulgar woman. Her voice was firm and unwavering. Sebastian's eyes widened in shock. But before he could respond, Scott spoke. He had the nerve to show up at the wedding, that's why. Sebastian blinked. What? Alicia continued. That's right. We told him to stay away, and yet he came anyway. It's his own fault. Monica. Isn't it embarrassing to have a middle school dropout in our family? From now on, we'll have nothing to do with him. Sebastian. You should cut ties as well. A heavy silence fell over the table. Sebastian trembled, about to speak, but before he could, Monica's voice rang out. This is disgusting. How could you do something so horrible? Monica. I never got along with you two, but this is beyond disgraceful. I'm ashamed of you both. Jason, Sebastian, I'm so sorry. Her shoulders shook, and her voice was thick with tears. Alicia panicked and tried to calm her down. Monica, don't lower your head to a man like him. That's so unbecoming. The only ones who are unbecoming are you two. I'm done. I'm cutting ties with you today. I've made up my mind. Scott's face twisted with rage, and he turned his glare to me. Sebastian. How dare you make my daughter say such things? This is all your fault. You're ruining everything. Get out of here, you worthless nobody. Alicia chimed in. That's right. You're a disgrace. Everything would have been perfect if you weren't here. I turned to Sebastian. Sebastian, congratulations. But I think it's time for me to leave. Jason. As I stood up, Scott sneered. You should have done that from the start, you brainless dropout. Take that woman and get out of here. At that moment, Jessica's voice rang through the hall. Mr. Ingram, should we shut their company down? I let out a sigh and answered. That depends on how they behave. A stunned silence spread through the room. Then, Scott burst into laughter. CEO? Shut us down? What kind of nonsense is this? Did I hear that right? A middle school dropout talking big? What a joke. I pulled a business card from my pocket and held it out. I suppose I should have introduced myself properly. Printed on the card were the words, S Corporation Construction, CEO, Jason Ingram. Scott's smug expression faltered as he read the card aloud. S Corporation Construction. Wait a minute. That's the same name as our major supplier. Not just the same name. That company is ours. And as of last month, Jason became the CEO. What? That's right. As of last month, I had been appointed CEO of one of the largest construction companies in the region. Many people hear construction company and assume it's a small business, but S Corporation was an industry leader. We handled major projects, tourist buildings, luxury apartments, commercial skyscrapers. Originally, the company was run by my best friend Daniel's father. However, Daniel, the only son, had a dream of becoming a doctor, and he made it come true. Then, he refused to take over the family business. With no heir, the previous president, Mr. Keller, approached me. I had studied independently and earned my architect's license, working in management for years. You're the only one I trust to take over, Mr. Keller had told me. I felt humbled, but since I had experience working from the ground up and had earned strong trust from those around me, the board of directors also insisted, saying, by all means. With my best friend Daniel's encouragement, I decided to accept the offer. Jessica, in addition to being my fiancée, worked as my executive secretary and business advisor. With my promotion, she had naturally become my right-hand woman. It was only recently that I discovered that Scott's company was one of our major material suppliers. No way. This can't be happening. Scott, now pale, frantically pulled out his phone and began searching. He opened the S Corporation website, only to be greeted by an announcement, new CEO appointment, along with my photo. What the? You mean to tell me that you're actually my husband's business partner? Alicia was on the verge of panic. Scott, now sweating profusely, stammered. If only you had told us sooner. You should have said something right away. So, you're saying that if you had known he was the CEO, you wouldn't have called him a middle school dropout or a pauper? Jessica's voice was ice cold as she interjected. Yes, exactly. I mean, what a wonderful surprise. Becoming in-laws with the CEO of S Corporation. How about a drink to celebrate? Ignoring Scott, who spoke with a forced smile, I turned to Jessica and started talking to her. Jessica, what would happen if we cut ties with his company? There would be no impact, Mr. Ingram. We have alternative suppliers lined up. When Jessica, in work mode, spoke calmly, Scott flew into a rage. You can't be serious. Are you actually saying you're going to terminate our contract? By now, the entire reception hall had gone silent. All eyes were on us. I told you, it depends on your actions. If you sincerely apologize here and now, I might reconsider. What do you say? Want to bow your head to this middle school dropout? Scott's face turned an alarming shade of red. But he couldn't bring himself to bow, not in front of his relatives and the wedding guests. No, that's ridiculous. Tell you what, how about we lower our supply prices for you? That way, we can continue our partnership. Jessica let out a loud sigh. It's over. Yeah. Talk to the sales department and make arrangements to terminate the contract. Alicia shrieked. Wait. That's absurd. You can't be serious. Do you even know what you're doing? But before he could reach me, Sebastian and Monica stepped between us. Enough. You two are the ones who need to leave. I don't care if you're Monica's parents, I will never forgive you for insulting my brother. Monica quickly signaled to the staff, and within moments, security arrived to escort Scott and Alicia out. I'm so sorry, Jason, Jessica. Truly, I had no idea. Monica lowers her head, her eyes filled with tears. It's not your fault, Monica. Now, let's get back to your wedding. Everyone's waiting for you too. And with that, the reception carried on without issue. Afterward, a few days later, Monica made a firm declaration. I'm cutting ties with my parents and the rest of the family. I can't be associated with people like that. As long as I have Sebastian, that's all I need. As Monica speaks, I look at Sebastian. Sebastian, take care of Monica. Make sure she's happy. He nodded resolutely. As promised, I followed through with cutting ties with Scott's company. The result? His company took a devastating financial hit. They struggled to recover but were unable to secure new contracts. Within a year, they were forced to declare bankruptcy. It turned out that Scott and Alicia had been living extravagantly, draining company funds for their personal luxuries. They had almost no savings. When the company collapsed, they were left with massive debts. They were forced to sell their home and all their assets, leaving them penniless. I later heard that they now lived in a rundown apartment, working menial jobs just to survive and pay off their debts. But no matter how desperate their situation became, I felt not even an ounce of sympathy. As the CEO of S Corporation Construction, I continue to work diligently every day. Recently, I bought a ring for Jessica. One of the reasons was Sebastian's advice: you'd better marry Jessica soon, or she'll get away. Finally, I was ready to be with Jessica. I want to spend my life with her. I wondered how she would react when I gave her the ring. Imagining her expression, I took a deep breath and pushed open the doors of the restaurant where she was waiting.